Now, the negotiations over our exit from the European Union are fundamental to our future. It's no exaggeration to say they'll shape everything we want to achieve as a country over the coming years and decades. We're doing nothing less than refashioning Britain's place in the world. Our success or failure will determine and shape all our futures. So it's obviously a great responsibility, but also a great opportunity, and it falls on all of us in this place, every one of us in this Parliament, to make a success of it. As we've said, we'll seek a deep and special partnership with the European Union, one that reflects our shared values and history, one that works for all parts of the United Kingdom, our overseas territories and Crown dependencies, and one that delivers for the special circumstances around the border between Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland, because no one wants to see a return to the hard border. It should be a partnership like no other. It should be underpinned by ambitious agreements on free trade and customs, covering goods and services, and seeking the greatest possible tariff and barrier-free trade. Ending the free movement of people means leaving the single market, as the EU has made abundantly clear to those who cared to listen. Leaving the single market does not mean losing access to that market, which is why we are proposing a new ambitious free trade agreement. But it's not just about protecting existing markets, as my honourable friend raised in the first intervention. To deliver the national interest, we must seize on our new freedoms in terms of trade to create jobs and lift living standards. Britain must get out into the world, forge its own path and be a true beacon for free trade. No, that means leaving the customs union, so that Britain, for the first time in over 40 years, will be able to take full advantage of growing markets across the world and determine a trade policy fashioned around, not around 28 countries' interests, but about one country's interests. So we get a trade policy that suits this country and this country alone. This has been reflected. The European Commission itself. The European Commission itself says that 90% of the future growth in world trade will come from outside the European Union. And this has already been reflected by the long-term decline, the share of British goods that go to the European Union, as our global trade has increased dramatically. If this House wants a Brexit deal that drives prosperity and living standards, if it really wants a Brexit for jobs, then it must put its faith in free trade and ensure that an exit means we can embrace its opportunities to the full.
Do they really want the United Kingdom indefinitely to remain part of an undemocratic system which is governed by majority voting, which takes place behind closed doors, and then moving on towards integration with the common defence policy, the common finance ministry, and also further moves towards a political union in which we be in the second tier of a two-tier Europe dominated largely by one country?
When Britain voted in the referendum 1 year and 4 days ago, the question on the ballot paper was a narrow technical question: to remain in or to leave the EU. But the vote was far from narrow and technical. People saw different questions behind those boxes. It was a vote on the state of the nation. This will be an international agreement, and therefore it's subject to international enforcement. And the pretense that this can all be done within our own courts and our own jurisdiction is a pretense. I'll come to the wider question when I will, but it would be far better, we talk about honesty and doing this in a grown-up way, it'd be far better if the government recognised what that core concern of is in the EU and found a way of ensuring that their concerns are met. I will give way.
An approach. I'd request him to change his tone and approach to something a bit more positive. Brexit is an opportunity for our country to grasp, not a crisis to manage. And to look behind what the British people voted for last year is hypocritical and arrogant of him.
For him to be balanced in his view on no deal, he also needs to talk about what no deal means to the EU 27. We looked at this at the Foreign Affairs Committee, and actually the experts say that no deal for the EU 27 is as harsh as no deal for the United Kingdom. A bit of balance in his words, I think, will go down very well in terms of a common policy on this.
I'm grateful for that intervention, and I readily accept that not only do we need a deal, but the EU needs a deal, and that's why we should That's why we should not be talking up a no deal as a viable strategy.
Well, I have to say, after I think about 37 speeches, Mr. Speaker, my abiding impression actually is that there is far more that unites this House in our approach to Brexit across both sides of the chamber than divides it, and more confidence in this country's future than you would expect from some of the coverage in the media. And I was particularly pleased to hear my right honourable friend, the member for Broxtowe, who I'm delighted to see in her place, say that we have a great economy and a bright future, and she is entirely correct in that. And the members for Fareham and for Witney and for Sleaford and for Stratford and many others, Mr. Speaker, raised their voices in favour of free trade and free trade deals. None of them dissented from that essential, that fundamental understanding about Brexit, and there is far more that unites us